Welcome to the Essentra Packaging Equipment Installation Project PSCS EHS Induction. Requirements for entry to site. So all staff must have the following as a minimum before they're allowed entry onto site: the ability to read and communicate through the English language, a valid current Safe Pass card, valid current manual handling cert, and additional training certs then is required for their specific tasks such as PSCS plant cards for telescopic handlers, MUPS, CSCS scaffolding card for erection or inspection of scaffolding, CSCS mobile tower scaffolding card for erection or inspection of aluminium towers, abrasive wheels training. All staff must also complete COVID-19 declaration before accessing the site and must complete declaration at least every week thereafter. All staff must read their temperatures daily and record that the temperature is less than 37.5 degrees Celsius before entering the site. We'll go through the setup for that there later on. So this induction, the contents include coronavirus mitigation, project mission statement, project management contacts, project scope, safety legislation and duties, incidents and accidents, reporting, first aid, site layout, site access and security, fire and emergency arrangements, PPE requirements, RAMs and permits, project specific hazards, summary of site specific rules, disciplinary procedures, environmental awareness and pest control. And there's a quiz at the end of the video. You'll see a link to the quiz at the bottom in the comments, and everybody must complete that quiz before we'll let them onto site. So coronavirus mitigation. Construction site is no different to any other public location, so site personnel should exercise the HSE public health guide advice at all times, including the following: wearing a face mask at all times whilst on site, washing hands regularly and correctly, cover sneezes and coughs with the inside of your elbow, maintain a safe distance of 2 meters from working colleagues. If personnel have any concerns related to COVID-19 and work, immediately contact Engage Construction site manager. Engage Construction will advise all site staff of every morning if there's any information updates arising from government or health protection agencies. All employees must consider these questions daily before signing this attendance sheet. Are you a particular vulnerability to COVID-19? Have any of your immediate family been diagnosed, or are they in self-isolation? Have you been in direct contact with anyone who's been out of the country in the last 2 weeks? Is your temperature less than 37.5 degrees? And as I said, there'll be a temperature sensor available in the site office. Do you have any of the following symptoms: cough, shortness of breath, breathing difficulties, fever, high temperature, any other flu-like symptoms? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, please contact Engage Construction Site Management and your line manager. If the answers are no, then you could sign the attendance sheet in the site office and proceed to work. So specifically, we'll be doing a temperature check each morning as lads arrive on site. So there'll be a sign-on sheet which will ask you to confirm that having checked your temperature, it's less than 37.5 degrees before you access the facility. In addition, personnel should keep their own PPE with them at all times, not to be sharing PPE, and particular to wear gloves at all times. Only use the canteen where you can safely maintain a separation of 2 meters. Segregate all construction staff from Essentra operational staff, and we need to liaise access to common areas in advance through the Engage Construction Site Manager. Exercise extreme care in the canteen regarding behaviour. If you're suffering from a cough, a sneeze or a runny nose, please don't use the canteen. Don't share your tools with others. If you do need to use a common tool, then we need to wipe down the handles and grips with disinfectant before it's transferred. Where possible, travel to and from the site alone. If it's not feasible for your situation, please travel with the same person each day. The project mission statement: we want to deliver the project with 0 accidents or incidents, 0 impact to Essentra facility staff and third parties, maintain a safe working environment at all times, make sure that safe working methods are executed at all times, build a strong integrated team with communication emphasis, and ensure that it's a successful and enjoyable project for everyone involved. The project team: so the client is Essentra, the designer and PSDP is Tandem Project Management, main contractor in PSCS is Engage Construction, and then we have contractors. O'Shea's Electrical, the electrical contractor. Man Rowland are doing all of the relocation movements of existing equipment. Engage Construction will have a certain amount of CSA contracting work to do. Pramac are doing fire sprinkler modifications, and Paul Keller Plumbing Services are doing some plumbing works. So the project manager PSCS representative is Owen O'Shea, that's me. we'll have a site manager starting on site on the 2nd of November, Richard Crowley, and Michael Gainey will be a site foreman on site also. The project scope includes the following headline construction elements: demolition of existing internal walls, resin flooring works, modification relocation of existing partition screens, wall painting works, plasterboarding existing walls, relocation of existing printing equipment across the factory floor, relocation and rationalisation of existing electrical infrastructure to support the new floor layout. So safety legislation in Ireland related to the construction industry includes the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005, Chemical Acts 08 and 10, and then in regulations we have the Construction Regulations 2013, General Application Regs 2007. We also have HSA codes of practice and guideline documents, including code of practice for access and working scaffolds, mobile elevated work platforms, safe use of work platforms, information sheet, ladder safety, use of mobile machinery in construction sites, requirements for construction site welfare facilities, and a summary of key duties under the Construction Regs 2013. So all of that legislation and guidelines defines safety duties for employers. So every employer shall ensure, so far as reasonably practicable, the safety, health and welfare at work of all employees, safe design and maintenance of any place of work or at risk to health, safe access and egress to and from any place of work, provision of planned, organised and maintained systems of work, provision of adequate information, instruction, training and supervision, suitable protective clothing or equipment where it's not possible to eliminate a hazard, adequate plans regarding emergencies, prevention of any ill health or harm from any article or substance, services of a competent person and adequate welfare facilities. As PSCS, engaged construction must coordinate the identification, elimination or the reduction of risks during construction, prepare and communicate construction stage health and safety plan, coordinate the implementation of the construction regs by contractors, organise cooperation between contractors, the provision of information, coordinate the reporting of accidents to the HSA, coordinate the checking of safe working procedures, measures to restrict entry onto the site, provision, maintenance of welfare facilities, arrangements to ensure that workers have a safe pass and construction skills cards as required for their particular work, coordinate the appointment of a site safety rep where there is more than 20 persons working on site, provide all necessary safety file information to the PSDP, monitor the compliance of contractors and others and take corrective action where necessary, notify the authority and the client of non-compliance with any written instructions issued. So the whole lot of us then as employees must take reasonable care for our own safety, health and welfare and that of any other person. Ensure not to be under the influence of an intoxicant at the place of work, and in that regard to submit to an appropriate test under the supervision of a registered medical practitioner where reasonably required by the employer, to cooperate with the employer and PSCS in relation to health and safety, attend training in respect to health and safety at work, use protective equipment or clothing in the appropriate manner, not to interfere with, misuse or damage anything provided under the relevant statutory provisions or otherwise for securing health and safety welfare of persons at work, not to engage in inappropriate behaviour or horseplay, and the last one is the most important one, to report to their employer or immediate supervisor without delay any defect in plant, equipment, place or system of work which may endanger health and safety or welfare. So basically the last one, as I said, is the most important. It basically tells us that anybody who sees anything that is unsafe or potentially unsafe, report it immediately so that we can get it sorted out. The legislation goes on to define near misses, incidents and accidents. So an unsafe condition is picture 1 here on the right hand side of the screen. It's an unsatisfactory physical condition existing in the workplace identified prior to an incident, accident or near miss taking place. So in the picture example there, it's a dodgy shackle holding up the load. An unsafe act is an activity undertaken exposing persons to excessive risks such as unauthorised use of equipment, no incorrect PPE, and in our picture examples here it's the lads walking underneath the poorly supported load. Near miss is an event or condition which under different circumstances could have resulted in either an incident or an accident. So in this case here it's the load falling but missing the lads. And then finally we have an incident, an unplanned or undesired action that causes damage to the facility, plant or equipment, or an accident as any work-related event that gives rise to an injury requiring first aid, medical treatment and or ill health. So everyone on site must immediately report all hazardous conditions, near misses, incidents and accidents to the PSCS so that we can get them resolved. If something happens and you require medical treatment, inform your first aider immediately, and the names of the first aiders will be posted in the site accommodation and also on site. So as I say, full list names will be posted on site. There'll be first aid boxes available at the project whiteboard and the site office canteen. And note also that there's an AED available in the Essentra canteen for those suffering from cardiac arrest. So this is just a view of the outside of the plant. So there's 2 access doors there on the western wall, which will be alternating as the project progresses through the schedule. Access into the pharmafoil area, which is being demolished, and there's another access door there into the factory floor. The contractor's compound will be set up in an existing car park there, shown in the blue hatched area, and there's a roller shutter door that we will be able to use for larger items and plant, but access through that door must be arranged through the PSCS. In terms of contractor parking, so there is a staff parking area located there south of the building, so we're not permitted to use any of those areas, and we've been allocated a space there at the side of the access road with the 2 orange lines showing there, and we will be parallel parking at the side of the road along those areas. We'll be excluding parking there at the radius just to allow enough turning circle there for heavy goods vehicles coming in and out of the loading bays at the back of the factory. Internal areas, so the pharmafoil area shown in the blue hatching there, we're doing a lot of demolition works inside there to release that space to the factory floor for equipment. And in the yellow-orange area there, there's a series of phased equipment moves going to progress through those areas in conjunction with Man Roland. So a lot of the existing equipment is being relocated to free up the northern space there for a new printing press that's being installed later on. Site access and security. All staff must sign in and out of the site attendance in the site record and the site office when entering and exiting the site. Entry exit points be clearly signed, and these are the only entrances to be used by construction staff. Site entrance will alternate, as I said, between the factory floor door and the pharmafoil entrance door as the project progresses. The goods entrance roller door could be used once advance notice and coordinated through Engage Construction. All visitors must be notified at least 1 day in advance to Engage Construction so that we can coordinate their entry with Essentra. And no access is permitted to Essentra admin, canteen or welfare facilities. So we're using our own canteen and welfare. There's nobody to access any of the Essentra areas. So we're trying to, as much as possible, segregate our staff and construction project staff from any of the Essentra operational staff. Fire and emergency arrangements. Fire alarm will be tested regularly on site, and we'll get advance notice of a test before it is conducted. So the test will involve the activation of all fire alarm sounders for approximately 2 minutes. Always evacuate if you hear the alarm outside of these times. Extinguishers are located at the site office at the station, and there's extinguishers also around the factory floor. Extinguishers empty in a short time, so it's dangerous to fight a fire that's spreading. Fire alarm break glass units are located at various points also across the factory floor. If you are using an extinguisher, follow the PASS acronym. So pull the pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the flame, squeeze the trigger and sweep from side to side. But only use an extinguisher when you're competent in its safe use. There's a clear exit route for you, and at no time is there any risk posed to your health and well-being. So in the event of a fire, large chemical leak or a gas leak, make your job at hand safe and evacuate. Raise the alarm, if not already raised, by using the nearest break glass unit. Keep calm and don't run. Avoid smoke and fumes, stoop low or crawl. Evacuate the building via the nearest emergency exit route. When exiting, close the doors behind you to prevent the spread of fire and smoke. Proceed carefully to the muster station, which will be located at the entrance to our site compound, and await there until further instruction. Don't re-enter the building until we're given the all clear by Essentra, and we'll communicate that. So that's just the fire layout of the floors that shows the locations of break glass units and the emergency exit doors. And you'll see the red star there is the construction muster station, which, as I said, will be at the entrance to our construction compound. Minimum PPE, so PPE to be worn at all times once you cross the door heading into the factory floor. And that includes a hard hat, glasses, gloves, vest, boots and a face mask. And finally, a hairnet. So there'll be a hairnet will be required for everybody working on the factory floor. That's per Essentra policy. And the face mask, as I said, at all times, and that's a COVID-19 mitigation measure. Additional PPE then will be as required by your specific task RAMs, such as, say, for instance, a harness and lanyard if you're in a MUP. So Engage Construction as PSCS have been assigned responsibility for the safety management of all activities to be undertaken on the project. Control of these activities will utilise a method statement risk assessment and also permits to work forms to control the activities. RAMs are required from all contractors to cover their activities undertaken on site. RAMs are to be submitted to Engage Construction for review at least a week prior to the scheduled commencement of activity so we can get through them, review and approve them. Approved RAMs will demonstrate and record that the contractor has considered the following: the identification of hazards, assessment of the risks associated with those hazards, and then to determine and implement controls necessary to mitigate and reduce those risks. So all staff engaged in activity must read and understand the contents of their associated RAMs and adhere to the various control measures described at all times. We'll be implementing a permit to work procedure on site also, just to control the execution of activities. So under no circumstances is there any work of any kind to take place without checking the need for a permit. Permits will be issued once safe procedures have been defined through approval of activity-specific RAMs, and when the surrounding environment is deemed to be safe and ready, and when we've coordinated the various work areas with Essentra. Permits are to be opened before the activity commences and closed following completion of the task each day. So crew charge hands will open and close permits with the Engage Construction Site Manager. Project-specific hazards. So the following have been identified in the Essentra project: working at height, electrical safety, hot works, coordination of multiple adjacent activities, and obviously COVID-19, we've covered that already. So working at height, podium ladders, the only ladders allowed on site. Maintain 3 points of contact when you're climbing the ladder rungs. Guardrail to be securely closed behind you at all times. If access is unavailable for a podium, if you've restricted access, then specific risk assessment to be completed to allow the use of a straight or an A-frame ladder. CSCS cards required for mobile towers and MUPs. Harness lanyards tied off at all times whilst you're up in the MUP. And there'll be a register of all working at height equipment maintained at the site safety file. There'll be weekly visual inspection to be completed by the contractor and returned to Engage Construction on the HSA GA3 format. Electrical safety. So significant electrical works being undertaken by O'Shea's Electrical. So it'll be a big issue on the job. Electricity can injure or kill without warning. There will be a lockout tagout system deployed in compliance there with the O'Shea's Electrical lockout tagout procedure. If in doubt, ask. Only 110 volt portable tools or battery power tools are permitted on site. Temporary power will be from designated points only. All electrical work will be carried out in compliance with the Irish electrical standards. Only authorised, competent and certified electricians are permitted to work on electrical equipment and systems. Hot works. So the Essentra facility is particularly sensitive to risks associated with hot works due to the large volumes of flammable materials present on site. So it being a printing factory, there's a lot of paper on site obviously. So insofar as possible, all hot works will be undertaken in the site compound. So we classify hot works in a class 1, which would be hot works where there's a naked flame excuse me, or a spark present, and class 2, which has a heat source with the potential to create a fire hazard. And typical controls which would be implemented would include the clearing of areas of combustible materials, keeping a fire extinguisher on hand, fire blanket to be kept on hand, an attendant fire watch watching the work at all times for class 1 works, a 1-hour walk down following completion of the work, and gas monitoring if required. So we'll ensure the smoke heads are isolated before hot work start. So again, we need to coordinate that through the permit to work system. Coordination of multiple adjacent activities. So it's a busy factory that we're working in. It'll be under live operational conditions. So there'll be significant interaction with adjacent Essentra facility operators. We need to clear pedestrian plant movement routes in advance as we progress through the facility. Spotters must accompany moving plant and equipment, including MUPs. There'll be multiple disciplinary teams working together in a constrained space. The potential for hazards if areas not coordinated adequately. So we'll have a gathering with charge hands each morning to outline plan of works for the day, along with any associated hazards or risks to keep everyone on site up to date. Communication will be key to ensure that clashes are avoided, and will engage, or will feedback rather, to engage construction. Disciplinary procedures. 3-card system, we only want to issue green cards to reward positive behaviour. 2 yellows equals a red, or a straight red gets you off site. So green cards are awarded for positive behaviour such as good feedback, safety ideas, excellent compliance, good example to colleagues, good housekeeping. And all green cards be entered into a draw for €100 at the end of the project. Minor infringements then would include such things as PPE compliance issues, work practices not in accordance with RAMs, misuse of equipment, poor housekeeping, bad attitude, and the offender has to be stood down for re-induction. And then, as I said, 2 yellows gets you a red, or you'll get a straight red for complete disregard for safety, exposure to fall from height risk, tampering with safety devices, working without a permit, or unauthorised use of plant. And a red card, unfortunately, will mean that you'll have to go off site. Environmental awareness. All chemicals require prior approval before they come to site. They must be stored properly in approved containers, abundant stores. Ensure mobile plant containing chemicals has a double skin tank, and use drip trays for filling. Report all spillages immediately. Never pour materials or liquids down any drains. All waste bins must be labelled with the company logo and the type of waste. Bins should be emptied daily. Segregate all waste into the appropriate waste skip, and waste skips are available out in the site compound. There'll be a clean as you go policy in place at site. Everyone's responsible for the removal of their own waste, so it's not Engage Construction's responsibility, it's not Essentra Cleaner's responsibility. Everybody's responsible for cleaning their own workstation as they go through their work. Minimise your waste, dispose of it in the correct skips, keep evacuation routes clear from material or debris. Don't block emergency exits with materials or equipment. Don't leave objects sticky out into walkways. Clean up spills immediately. If there's rubbish on the floor, please pick it up, and store blades and sharp tools in a proper manner. Pest control. So the Essentra factory manufactures printed materials for pharmaceutical clients. Pest control is a critical aspect for their continuing operation. Pests include crawling and flying insects and rodents. Please ensure that all access doors, internal and external, are kept closed at all times, and report any pest observed entering the area, no matter how small. So a quick summary of do's and don'ts. So always make sure you have a permit and approved RAMs before you start work. Ensure you have a COVID-19 declaration and temperature check completed before starting on site. Wear your PPE at all times once you cross over the threshold of the door into the factory. Observe all safety notices and signs on site. Report without delay anything that looks unsafe. Report all near misses, incidents and accidents. Know your escape route. Always look for the nearest emergency exit sign, and maintain good personal hygiene. Never fight a fire unless it's safe to do so. Don't be abusive or offensive to your colleagues. Never smoke outside the designated area, which I should have mentioned is in the contractor's compound and will be signed. Don't eat or drink outside designated area in the site canteen. Don't work alone. Don't tamper with safety devices. Wear jewellery which may present a hazard when working with machinery, or don't walk outside the designated pedestrian walkways. So that's the induction. As I said, there's a link to an online quiz in the comments field at the bottom of this video. So please complete that quiz and fill in your personal information. There's also a COVID-19 declaration included in the questions. We'll get a record of your responses bounced back to us, and we can check those before let's start on site. Thank you very much.